Thank you for joining today's webinar. I'm Mindy Blue-Packa, and I'm the Vice President of Community Impact at Fairfield County's Community Foundation. Community Impact is our deliberate term that captures all of the work we do to influence positive change in the 23 cities and towns we serve. Functionally, I oversee the Foundation's grant-making, programs, public policy advocacy, and community leadership initiatives. That includes our Fund for Women and Girls, the Center for Nonprofit Excellence, and our Thrive by 25 programming. Today, I'm really excited to have the opportunity to share information with you about the Foundation's new strategic plan, which will define our goals and the approach we take to our work over the next 3 years. At the end of this session, I will have time to answer some of your questions, so I invite you to submit questions in the question box that can be found on the right-hand side of your screen. Please feel free to contribute your questions at any time. If you don't see the question box, click on the orange arrow on the top right-hand corner, and our team will try to resolve the issues for you. Before discussing the specific elements of the strategic plan, I'd like to quickly orient everyone to the Foundation's vision and mission. It is our vision to foster a vital and inclusive community where every individual has the opportunity to thrive. It is our mission to promote philanthropy as a means to create change in Fairfield County, focusing on innovative and collaborative solutions to critical issues impacting the community. Our vision and our mission remain unchanged. In addition to our vision and mission, our organizational values are foundational to our work. As a staff and board, we are aligned around 5 organizational values: diversity, equity, inclusion, collaboration, and integrity. Each of these core values are critical to advancing our mission. However, coming out of our strategic planning process, we have defined a new overarching strategic goal, which is to close the opportunity gap in Fairfield County. We appreciate that the magnitude of this ambition, but believe there is no more important goal for our region at this time. We know that a quality education, safe neighborhoods, stable housing, and the ability to earn a living wage are outside of the reach of many residents across our county. We also know that income inequality in Fairfield County ranks first in the largest metro areas of the United States. The needs are pressing and urgent, and for that reason, we will align all of our efforts and resources around accomplishing this goal. We recognize that to close the opportunity gap, public, private, and nonprofit sectors must work together to create lasting change. Now let's walk through some of the details of our strategy to close the opportunity gap. This is our strategic framework, which will guide our grant-making, programmatic investments, public policy advocacy, and community leadership initiatives over the next 3 years. Since there is a lot of information on the framework, I want to take a moment to orient you to it. Reading the columns from left to right, we have our overarching goal and target populations, followed by the 4 specific results we are seeking to achieve and the community impact strategies we believe will enable us to achieve those results. Finally, we have some of the population level indicators that we will track over time to get a sense of whether the needle is moving on our desired results. We will develop more indicators as we continue to undertake our work. Please keep in mind that the framework should be read from left to right because the rows match up for results, impact strategies, and population indicators. As background, the strategic framework and the results, strategies, and indicators we'll explore today were informed by partner foundations who are focused on the opportunity gap, conversations with the collective impact groups in Fairfield County, and our own reflections on our expertise, resources, and capacity. Our headline indicators specifically were identified through a process that included discussions with our internal and external stakeholders. In defining these indicators, key considerations included the power to tell the story, the availability of reliable data, and the frequency with which available data is updated. Now let's dive into the framework. Starting at the far left, while we recognize that our overarching goal of closing the opportunity gap in Fairfield County is about creating economic security for all residents, we knew that we needed to narrow our target populations based both on need and our capacity to impact change. With this in mind, we have identified 3 target populations for our work: young adults ages 16 to 25, women and girls, and immigrants. As you read through the results statements, community impact strategies, and headline population indicators, you will see these target populations reflected. Now let's take a deeper dive into the first result area. The first result we are seeking to achieve is that all Fairfield County students graduate with a high school degree and are prepared for post-secondary education and employment. To accomplish this goal, we believe we must increase out-of-school time opportunities for students, reduce chronic absenteeism, improve life skills, increase opportunities for career exploration, internships, and summer employment, and connect target populations to wraparound support services. Some ways we will track progress against this desired result include measuring the percent of 16 to 19-year-olds in school or employed in Fairfield County, and the percent of students with a high school diploma or equivalent in the county. Our second desired result is that all Fairfield County older youth and young adults have training and credentials that lead to meaningful opportunities, career opportunities specifically. To accomplish this goal, we believe we must prepare individuals for employment and career pathways, increase engagement in STEAM, which stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, Arts, and Mathematics, increase opportunities for internships and summer employment, and connect target populations to wraparound support services. Some ways we will track progress against this desired result include measuring the percent of 18 to 25-year-olds not in school or employed in Fairfield County, and the percent of students graduating within 3 years from community college or 5 years from university and or achieving a career certificate in Fairfield County. Our third desired result is that all Fairfield County women and girls are economically secure, healthy, and safe. To accomplish this goal, we believe we must improve education and employment prospects, improve life skills, expand career opportunities, and promote pay equity. We will also promote leadership development and increase behavioral health care and reproductive health services. Finally, we believe that to improve the economic security and safety of women in the county, we must improve safety overall for this population. One way we will measure progress against this desired result is to track the median full-time earnings gap between women and men in the county over time. Our final desired result is that all Fairfield County residents have safe, stable, healthy, and affordable housing in communities of opportunity. To accomplish this goal, we believe we must move people from homelessness to housing stability and provide supportive services. Some ways we will track progress against this goal, this desired outcome, include measuring the percent of household income spent on housing in Fairfield County and the number of occupied units paying gross rent that is greater than 30% of income. Finally, I'd like to share the organizational levers of change we plan to utilize to accomplish each of our desired results. These 6 levers of change apply to all results and associated strategies. First, we will expand and deploy financial resources. As a foundation, we deploy financial resources through grant making, programmatic investments, and support for community leadership and advocacy initiatives. Second, we will educate and connect donors and philanthropies about the region's inequities and our success at addressing those inequities for the purpose of growing our resources available to impact change. Third, we will align and catalyze actions with results. This includes investing in nonprofits aligned with our results areas and pursuing co-investment and community leadership opportunities with foundations that share an interest in reducing our region's opportunity gap. We will also incorporate a diversity, equity, and inclusion lens to all grant-making and community leadership work, and direct grant-making resources to grantees that do advocacy on issues related to populations most affected by the opportunity gap. Fourth, we will build the capacity and effectiveness of the aligned nonprofit sector. Through our Center for Nonprofit Excellence, we will tailor specific capacity building, programming, and investments for grantees that are working to close the opportunity gap. Fifth, we will aggregate and amplify community voice and knowledge, empowering community members and community leaders to engage in the development of solutions. And finally, we will influence policies affecting target populations as we deliberately pursue a policy agenda and articulate and advocate for informed policy positions. So before wrapping up, I'd like to provide a bit of housekeeping information. You can visit our website, fccfoundation.org, for details on grant cycles and eligibility and more information on our strategic plan. Please create an account if you are interested in being a partner. With respect to our grant making, we begin the process by requesting that interested organizations submit a letter of inquiry online. Invitations to submit full applications are made after review of letters of inquiry. Please note that an invitation to submit a full application does not guarantee a grant award, but it does indicate some alignment between your work and ours. Finally, there are some key dates it may be helpful to keep in mind. Our Fund for Women and Girls, which funds our third desired result, is tentatively scheduled to begin accepting small grant applications on July 1st. Our fall grant cycle kicks off on July 15th with the start of the letter of inquiry period, and grant award decisions will be made in early July. It's also worth noting that our fall grant cycle will be the first grant cycle where this strategic framework will officially be applied. Applications for our 2019 summer program support application open on September 24th with decisions in early January. And we will be offering a two-part training series on results-based accountability in July and August. We use results-based accountability to measure the performance of our grantee partners as well as our own performance. Now I'd like to open things up and address any questions you may have. We're also open to considerations about the strategic framework. So one question that came in was whether or not we will be continuing to fund the arts. That's a really great question, and the answer is that we will continue to fund the arts as well as many other areas through the lens of our new strategic framework. So if we think about many of the areas that we've called out, particularly those pertaining to education or those pertaining to the advancement of economic security and well-being for women and girls, there are many organizations, arts organizations in specific, that are operating in those spaces. So when we think about funding arts organizations going forward, some questions we may ask are, how is the organization helping to advance educational outcomes for county residents? Or if, for example, we were to fund through our Fund for Women and Girls, how is this arts organization uniquely serving the needs of women and girls in the county? So we absolutely will maintain that lens on our funding, but it will be through our new strategic outlook. A second question that came in is, will we directly fund advocacy work? We will directly fund advocacy work, and I think this is not necessarily something entirely new for us as a foundation. We have worked with and funded grantees in the past that do advocacy work, but I think we will be putting a particular lens on this moving forward. That said, we are cognizant of our own 501c3 status, and we cannot fund advocacy that is around supporting politicians or driven by partisan politics. But that said, we will be looking to fund organizations that are working in the space to close the opportunity gap and that are really advocating for policies that evidence suggests are supportive of that goal. So a third question that has come in. I have a client that has received a fund for arts and education program over the past few years by a donor-advised fund. Will this continue? That's a really great question, and the information that I have shared today pertains to the entire foundation, but I have largely spoken about our competitive grant making. And our competitive grant making will be guided by this framework. For those that have worked with our donor-advised funds in the past, You may already know that our donors very often have their own strategic priorities. Sometimes those are aligned with ours, sometimes they are not. So if you have worked in the past with a donor advised fund that has funded you and has a particular interest in the work that your organization does, they will still be able to apply that lens to their own funding. Will we have this PowerPoint available to share? Absolutely. I believe the PowerPoint is already available on our website. Certainly, I know that the strategic framework is, and so that information will be readily accessible. Is the application process the same for small grants? The application process is slightly different for small grants, particularly around the timing of it, the maximum award, and the contact for our small grants program is Alex Quesada, and she is the associate in our Fund for Women and Girls, and Alex's information is available under staff on our website. And so if you have more specific questions about that small grant program, I would strongly suggest reaching out to Alex, who can provide details about the nuances and the differences. We had a question, aren't the needs of boys as great, in fact, greater than girls, especially when you measure the opportunity gap? I think that's a really terrific question, and I think it warrants distinguishing some of the reasoning behind our goals. And so revisiting the portion which indicated that our goals arose both from an evaluation of need and our capacity to impact change. I think our calling out of the needs of women and girls is really associated to the latter. And so for those who are familiar, we have a fund for women and girls, which is in fact the largest fund for women and girls in New England, and that gives us a lot of resource capacity in order to impact change with that specific target population. So it shouldn't be read as, so our choice to focus on that target population should not be interpreted as our suggestion that the needs of boys and men are any less pressing, but really does relate to our ability to affect change. That said, in terms of opportunity youth, we often find that boys are overrepresented in the opportunity youth target population, and that is also a target population of ours. So we expect to be funding that population significantly through that lens as well. Will there be a change to the grant ranges for each of these pillars? So there will not. We do not establish official ranges for any of our results areas, and it really is based cycle to cycle. It's based in part on the applications we receive and on the resources that we have available to deploy. So we have not associated any specific dollar amounts or ranges with any of the 4 results areas. Will youth development organizations serving elementary age children be eligible for funding as in the past? That's a great question as well. The answer is yes. I would think one of the pieces that I would draw your attention to is around our funding for summer learning opportunities in particular. Very often that work incorporates a younger population. We also have a significant amount of funding that flows through our Fund for Women and Girls for early childhood education. So although we have called out some target populations, that doesn't mean that there will not be funding in other areas that advance educational outcomes for county residents. With regard to elderly adults and the increasing impact they have on 3 to 4 generation households, is there a place in your plan to address this population? This is a really important question. We in the past have called out elderly adults as a targeted population, and as the questioner noted, that is no longer the case. And so we did have to make some explicit decisions, again, based on our ability to have impact, based on the funding resources that we have to target that population. And so it is the case that that is no longer a target population. But again, within some of our funding areas that are not narrowly defined, for example, our Fund for Women and Girls, or our economic opportunity area of housing, which seeks to provide access to affordable housing for all, elderly individuals would fall within those results areas and populations, but we would not have funding explicitly targeted around that population. I think we just have a few additional questions coming in. You can just bear with us for a couple seconds. So a question came in about where to identify information about grants on our website. So on our website, we have a page you can go to for grants and scholarships. And if you click on the menu items, you'll find more details on our grant-making process. Will grants given to arts organizations still be drawn from the Arts Fund only, or will additional funding be available due to the focus of arts work that will be funded? So the way that we fund organizations, we typically don't fund, with the exception of the Fund for Women and Girls, we typically don't fund any particular area from a single fund. And so just as would be the case for any other area of funding for arts organizations would come from any potential area of funds or any fund where it was applicable and where we would be able to apply those dollars. So there is not one single fund that would drive that funding. Will you be funding any general operating support specifically for arts organizations? So we will be funding general operating support through the same lens that we have traditionally funded general operating support. So for those who are familiar and those who are not, in the past, our general operating support typically has flowed to organizations where we've had some history, we've had an established funding relationship, and we've been able to build that over time. So that lens will still be applied. In terms of arts organizations, I don't think it's an explicit yes or no, but I would say that every organization will have to compete within a pool, and the competitiveness of that pool for our funding will be defined by the degree of alignment between the work and our strategic plan. So to the extent that an organization, whether it's arts or any other, is most aligned and best aligned with our strategic plan, it would obviously compete better in our pool of funding. And so I think without being able to give an explicit yes or no, that's how I would think about it. I think that's it on questions. I thank everyone for taking a few moments out of your afternoon and spending it with us. I encourage you to stay in touch and connected with us and to visit our website and our social media channels to learn more. You can feel free to reach out to me or any other staff, and we really appreciate you being ongoing partners.